Selling in the billions each year, Rainbow Mealworms is your one-stop shop for all your insect needs. Their quality feeders and A-plus customer service keep me coming back to support the health and growth of all of our animals. Visit them today at rainbowmealworms.net to place your order. I want to take this time to shout out Redline Shipping. They are the #1 fastest growing reptile and animal shipping company in the world right now, and that is for good reason. Use promo code GECKO5 today at checkout for an additional $5 off your shipping label. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Geeky Gecko Creations Live. I just realized this is playing on my computer, so I need to shut it off. So I'm going to do that. Oh, I'm sorry. There we go. All right. That is off now. So this is an extremely late night stream, and if you guys are normally a follower of ours, you know that we go live every Monday night typically, but I've been really busy these last couple weeks, and I apologize for that. I think I should be able to do a live tomorrow. Every couple of weeks I need to collect eggs from the gecko room, so I was doing that for the last 3 days. That's how long it takes me to collect eggs from that room. It takes me about 2 to 3 days of 2 to 3 hour sessions or so, so maybe 9-10 hours total to pull all the eggs in that room. Repair animals if I need to. That's not all the repairing, but sometimes while I'm pulling eggs, it's easy to repair an animal. So anyway, long story short, I should be back tomorrow night for another live, but I've been listening to a lot of streams while I'm cleaning, which is pretty cool because to perform a stream while I'm cleaning is extremely difficult to do because I have to look at your questions and it takes focus away from what I'm doing. Sometimes there's both mental and physical things that I need to pay attention to while I'm cleaning. So I've just been listening to others. And let me first start by seeing who's even here because this is super late night. Bam, what's going on, man? Grady's, Geckos, Max's. By the way, we're probably going to be looking for a couple more moderators for our Leopard Gecko page, non-judgmental Leopard Gecko keepers and breeders. Denise stepped back from moderatorship, which is understandable. It's a lot. It can be taxing. You get painted as the bad guy a lot of times. Sometimes you have to make decisions to like suspend people or remove people from the group, and it's just not always an easy time. The shop, what's going on? Hey, I'm so sorry, I forgot your name, the shop, but they will be vending in Anaheim, I'm guessing, and also Los Angeles. But Texas Kid, what's going on, man? The shop has an excellent page if you want to go follow them. I didn't know that you're such a good builder. You do a really good job building outdoor cages, and so I just want to commend you on that. Hey, Frank, can only stick around for a bit. So we got Texas Kid, Gecko Kingdom, the shop. Good to see you guys. By the way, we're supposed to be on Fauna Radio's show at the end of this month. So we'll see how that goes. You know what I mean? Long story short, I'm trying to think of how the perspective that I want to go in with. And I think I have the perspective that I want to go in with. And I know they're going to have their own agenda and perspective that they want to come with, and I'm perfectly fine with that. It's kind of already started with the thumbnail they made, but that's fine. You know what I mean? One of the reasons I made the title of this particular description today is because I've been listening to a lot of what happened with Slither Inc. So I don't know if you guys have been watching what happened with Slither Inc. There's a channel on YouTube that's been covering ex-employees that are speaking out against some of the things that they experienced at Slither Inc. And I've been listening to that testimony. I'm trying to think of the guy's channel's name. He's kind of, I guess, this is all revolving. Let me take a step back. So this is all revolving around the reticulated python community specifically right now, but it ties into all reptile niches such as leopard geckos, ball pythons, etc. But the reticulated python niche is going through a lot of drama right now.
because, and there's been other people that were removed from MorphMarket from what I heard, but there was a really, I don't even know if I don't know the guy. I don't know if I can call him a big breeder necessarily, because there was a lot of people that were questioning his breeding practices. So it's not like he was well accepted amongst all the other big breeders. However, he had 400, from the reports, he had 400 adult female reticulated pythons. That, another 200 males, and then you could guess how many females, how many babies. I think they said he had a 40 to 60% successful clutch rate, and if he breeds all 400 girls in 1 year, and each girl has 40 to 60 babies, that could be a ton of babies. But there was a lot of death and mistreatment that was reported of what was going on at his facility. And so I've been following that story, because what happened was, you guys all know Darian from MorphMarket. Maybe I can get Darian on the show one day too, because that'd be pretty cool. You guys all know Darian from MorphMarket. I actually think what he's doing is a good move for the hobby. So, saying what I said about this guy's facility with ex-employees and terrible stories and hundreds of photos and videos that have surfaced. If anybody knows the retic breeder's name that covered this story, I mean, there's probably a couple of them, but there's one reticulated python breeder in general that also really doesn't get along with like Reach Out Reptiles and MJ and that whole crew. But I feel like the evidence that he's been covering is really fruitful. So I've been listening to his podcast, because I never want to judge anybody without seeing the evidence. You know what I mean? So, Max's leopard geckos. Yeah, we'll be in Anaheim, and also Los Angeles as well. Yeah, horrific. So anyway, if anyone remembers that guy's channel's name, Dragonheart, what's going on, Dragonheart? I've been really, really busy the last couple weeks and even today, but this is kind of like my decompression time right now. So I figured I would pop on and see who else was on and just kind of decompress a little bit, and also talk a little bit about the industry. So breeding season's going good. We have our new setup of eggs, which I'll probably do a video of. RNB, there you go. Chris got it. If you go to RNB YouTube channel, you're going to see a lot of evidence come to light. Or, yeah, a lot of evidence as well as testimony. You know what I mean? And I'll probably do like an official video on this, but like I said, I just want to hang out, talk reptile hobby. So the hobby, I think, is heading in a really interesting but also necessary direction. So basically what we saw happen is we're beginning to see the foundation of what I think is going to be a policing department for the hobby. I think every niche is going to start to have their own set of standards that they abide by, and I think there's going to be certain mammoth political members in the reptile hobby that are going to attach themselves to those standards, which I think is a good thing. So like what happened with MorphMarket was MorphMarket made the decision after seeing the evidence against this guy's facility. They made the decision to remove this guy from MorphMarket, but not only remove him from MorphMarket, they made the decision to remove anybody that has business practices with this guy. So it's not like if you've bought a reptile from him or something like that. It's if you're actively engaging in business. You know what I mean? And I think MorphMarket will do that if they find out, but I think it's also really tough to catch everybody who's doing business with him. So I feel like it's a little bit of a scare tactic, by MorphMarket to scare people. Deter is the right word. Deter people from doing business with this guy. MorphMarket has almost, I feel like MorphMarket is becoming the policing unit for the hobby. And not everybody needs to be on MorphMarket to make a business. Like this guy that got kicked off of MorphMarket, he could go somewhere else, and he does a lot of shows. But now the owner of MorphMarket is also trying to get him kicked out of every single show across the nation that he does. And I think he's going to be successful in doing that because, well, I shouldn't say that, but show owners and MorphMarket are two separate things. They have separate sponsors a lot of times, you know what I mean? They have separate funding, they have separate goals, but at the same time, MorphMarket is using a lot of their platform to flex their power, so to speak. MorphMarket has a lot of power. MorphMarket is like, I don't want to say a dictatorship type thing over the hobby, but it kind of is, because everybody wants to be on MorphMarket. And not only that, it's one thing if you're not on MorphMarket, but it's another thing if Darian is spending marketing dollars to cancel you and to get your business canceled, completely canceled. You know what I mean? That's a whole nother level of power that MorphMarket is flexing. And again, I'm not saying that this is a bad thing. I'm just kind of stating it for what it is. The reptile hobby has grown to such a level right now that it's not just a hobby anymore. It's a true industry. And any industry needs rules, regulations, judges, and enforcers. And so I kind of think if I talked to Darian, I was almost going to suggest to him that he creates like an enforcement team. Like I almost kind of picture him as becoming like the governor or the president of the reptile hobby in a way. And the question is, why does MorphMarket have so much power? Is because nobody else is anywhere close to capturing the hearts of customers as MorphMarket is. And I don't think anybody will ever be even close to MorphMarket. Not in my lifetime, you know? And so because of that, everybody wants to be on MorphMarket's good side. And the new owner of MorphMarket has an extremely high ethical standard of the practice of keeping and breeding reptiles. And ultimately, I think that's a pretty good thing. I think we're going to see a lot of standards increase. But here's what I think my suggestion would be if I talk to Darian ever in the future. Everybody wants to be on MorphMarket's good side. Nobody doesn't want to be on MorphMarket's good side. So let's say this guy, Slither Inc., he gets all these reported issues, but there's no evidence. Like in this case, there was evidence. There was hundreds of photos and videos, employee testimony to show the extreme depravity of what this guy's location was like. There are some people that are arguing those pictures could have been taken across 20 years, right? So we have like 200 pictures that could have been taken across the spans of 20 years. But I don't think there's enough evidence to support that. I think the evidence mainly supports that this is the way this guy runs his operation today. But let's say that evidence wasn't there. MorphMarket's enforcement team, let's call them auditors. MorphMarket would have auditors that would fly to this guy's facility and inspect his facility. I don't know if you guys have ever worked in restaurants. Bam Bam, he's got anytime you have like a mechanical job, a job that could put people's lives at risk, there's always auditors. There's people that come in, that's a third party, that's unrelated to you, and they judge your standard of keeping. This is very common in Europe and the UK and Canada. I know this because I shouldn't say all of Canada, but the Urban Reptile has shown videos of when his facility gets inspected by a department that is responsible for labeling whether he is within the standards of ethical keeping or not. We don't have that in the United States. And so I almost feel like Darian is kind of starting that. Like, I feel like he's going to start that for sure. And so, like, let's say he has a team of auditors that when somebody's facility gets reported, they go out to that facility, they inspect the facility, and they give it a score. 10, you know, it could be in different categories, right? Cleanliness, enrichment, because a lot of people are geared towards enrichment nowadays, like bigger spaces for animals, more things for them to engage with. It could be, there could be a number of things that they score. Customer service and reviews from past sales, but I think mainly it's going to be physical inspection of hygiene and all that kind of stuff. So cleanliness, enrichment, what other categories do you guys think they could inspect? But you would get a score out of all these categories. And out of all these categories, MorphMarket would either keep you on the platform, suspend you from their platform, or ban you completely. And if they ban you completely, you could have a chance to get unbanned if you fix the things that are wrong that they said that you're not abiding by the standard that they would like for you to keep in that species and whatnot. And I think that's good in two ways. Way number one, it improves ultimately the care and the livelihood that goes into giant animal facilities, right? Because there's a bunch of giant animal facilities in our country, you know. I kind of consider myself one. You know what I mean? I got 1,500 geckos here right now that are not your average gecko. Like, a ton of them are high end, and the rest of them are medium end at lowest. You know what I mean? So you're talking about 1,500 adults or subadult, or you know what I mean, close to that. And then we got a bunch of babies we're hatching. So like, and then we got Tegus, we got sailfin dragons, you know what I mean? So, and I'm just one person. There's a bunch of other people that have the same amount as me or even more than me. And it can be tough when you're working with this many animals. That's why I wasn't doing live streams the last couple weeks. I had to prioritize the care of the animals and everything that I needed to do. So you would get a score, and then you would either fix what's wrong and improve your score on the next audit, or you would remain suspended or banned until otherwise. And the reason that's good is because if you fix what's wrong, then MorphMarket can put a badge or a star by your name that says, like, past inspection. Here was their score. And people could kind of buy from you based on their own ethical principles. I'm going to compare myself to Bubba's Geckos for a second, because I kind of know the ethical standards of Bubba. He keeps geckos, leopard geckos, in a lot bigger enclosures than like we would. I would probably say that our cleanliness and hygienic standards are the same or close to the same. Like, I take a lot of pride in making sure that everything is clean. Like, I can open a tub and it's clean, and I know he does the same. But he thinks a lot more about enrichment and stuff like that. Like, he puts plants in his enclosures. He puts big enclosures for just one gecko. And the reason that I don't do that is because the more decorations you have inside of an enclosure, the more surface area that enclosure has to gather bacteria when the animal poos on it, and if those items don't get cleaned for a long time, such as plants and whatnot. But I'm pretty sure Bubba cleans his plants and all that, you know what I mean? But Bubba's Geckos has 200 geckos, and let's just say, for lack of a better term, we have 1,500 to 2,000 geckos. We're in kind of a different standing. So if MorphMarket was to go inspect Bubba's Geckos facility, Bubba's Geckos will be clean, it will be hygienic, and it would be enriching. So he would get a better score for enriching than we would. If MorphMarket came to us, we would be clean, we would be hygienic, but we would probably score low on the enriching aspect of what we give our breeders or our animals. And that's because it's my choice to eliminate areas that bacteria can gather and to prioritize the hygiene of the animals for our specific facility and operation. And most of these animals that we're growing up are sold within 6 to 12 months of being born. So even if they're kept in slightly less enriching circumstances while they're here for hygiene purposes and numbers purposes so that we could work with a lot more animals, when they move off to a new home, they're moving off within their first year of life. And so it could be argued that it's not super important that enriching is the main focus when an animal is in a breeding operation. It could be argued that hygiene and cleanliness would be the more important thing. But anyway, I use that example because I know that Bubba's Geckos does a lot of enriching type stuff, with his plants. Joe from Wildcard Geckos, he has like a pool, or he used to have a pool. I don't know if he still does it. And he'll let his geckos like crawl around in the pool and crawl over branches and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Those are enriching things, and you can score higher for that. And I think that's a good thing. So a buyer could see your overall score and be like, okay, this breeder has an overall score from MorphMarket of 8 out of 10. Let me go see where they missed out on the 2 out of 10 points. And if that's important to me, then I could buy from somebody that has those points. So if somebody goes over to our page and they're like, oh yeah, Frank lost a couple points of enrichment and Bubba's Geckos is maxed out on enrichment, we're going to go buy from Bubba's Geckos because that's important to me. They would have that information. So that's one of the things that I'm thinking of. And then if I want to improve my enrichment one day, I could call MorphMarket back and be like, hey, look, I improved my enrichment. Here's what I'm doing now. Do you want to come check out the facility, or show them video evidence of it, or whatever the case is? And then my enrichment score can be bumped up. So anyway, I think what the reptile industry has been lacking up to this point is a policing system, So I think it's going to be really interesting to see where the hobby goes over the next year, but also 5 to 10 years. Is this something that's just going to blow over? I don't feel like anybody is going to create a brand against MorphMarket that is going to be anything comparable to it. But even if they did, they would have to sort of, okay, hear me out. Even if a competitor to MorphMarket came along, they would sort of have to abide by the ethical standards that MorphMarket is now promoting, because otherwise our hobby is very word of mouth. I mean, there's a lot of new customers at shows, on the internet, on YouTube, on social media. There's a lot of new customers that get gathered every single day. But past the new customer level, our hobby is very much word of mouth. And if you have a bad reputation, you're going to have a bad reputation word of mouth. If you have a mediocre reputation, you'll have mediocre. If you have a low, you'll have a low. I do think that sometimes reputations are not always true, because what somebody says about you might not be true. And I've heard Darian speak on this, is that he got hit up asking to remove a bunch of people. And his reply to that was, there's not enough evidence to support what you're claiming. And that's one of my reasons that I'm going to go on, what's the name? Fauna Radio's podcast, is because I want to clear up what's true and what's not true. And from that point forward, people can know that and then make a conscious decision like, okay, I've heard it from Frank's mouth that it's not true. I've heard it from this person's mouth that it is true. I'm going to choose to believe one person or the other, and their conscience can live with the decision of what they want. But, you know, and we have an overlapping following with Fauna Radio, but we have a much different following than Fauna Radio. You know, like Fauna Radio is mainly that breeders club. I'll even call them the elite breeders club, right? I'll call them the elite breeders club because they have their own desires, standards, and practices, and that's cool. And I actually think a lot of their standards and practices are good stuff. I don't think all their standards and practices are completely necessary, and I definitely don't think that they should be condemning people who don't stick to their standards or practices. So, and that's kind of the way that I'm going to go about it when I go on their show, is speaking my truth and making statements such as that. I don't think I'm going to try to fight or anything like that, you know, like audibly or anything. It is what it is. If you have the information, you can make a decision based on that information, and you could decide to believe one person or the other. But as of right now, that whole crowd of elitists, they're spewing lies. Like I heard, I'm gonna say this on Fauna Radio. I heard Chris from Suburban Gecko got interviewed by Evan, which, guys, I like these guys. I'm not. If these guys were in front of me right now, I'd shake their hand and be like, "Hey, let's talk geckos." But the problem is they don't want to do that. They just want to talk crap, right? But I'll give you just one example for this instance. Chris from Suburban Gecko was on a podcast with Evan from Strength and Leos, and he was insinuating, clearly insinuating, that if you go to my website right now, you could go to geekygeckocreations.com. We have something new that's called mystery packs. And these mystery packs are going to evolve over time. Right now, it's whatever I have excess of. So right now, it's mainly like 45 plus gram bolds, trempers, all of the genes that you could get in this package, mystery package, is listed in the description. Tremper albino, bold, emerine, white and yellow. Not once did it ever say lemon frost. But in an interview with Chris, which I'm not even breeding lemon frost. I haven't even bred lemon frost for over a year. I made one pairing like 6 months ago, and I hatched two babies from that experimental pairing. It was a black knight to a dark lemon frost that was not showing any symptoms, and it was really, really dark. And I almost wasn't I almost wasn't sure. I'm trying to think. I would say that I almost wasn't sure that it was lemon frost in a way. I mean, you can really tell based on the eyes, but because of how dark this animal is, the melanin in the eyes was filled in a lot more. And it's not like those are common to hatch. This was like the one gecko that was this dark. And so I wanted to test breed it to a black knight. And we got a couple babies from that. That was like 6 months ago. 2 babies from that 6 months ago. Prior to that, we haven't bred any since last year. And the total amount of lemon frost that we've ever produced is between 70 to 80. Which will tie into more lies that these people are saying that we're producing hundreds and hundreds and selling them and releasing them in our mystery boxes. And that's what Chris said on Evan's podcast. He was like, there's certain breeders in the hobby that have mystery boxes and they're releasing lemon frost in their mystery boxes. Now, you guys know me. I try to speak the truth. I try to be as upfront as possible. If I was going to put any lemon frost, first of all, I'm not selling any lemon frost, and I haven't for over a year. I've just kept everything to study it on my own. And I've only ever sold 4. Out of the like 80 that we've produced, I've only ever rehomed 4 of them for very, very low prices to fans of the project. So this whole myth about us selling hundreds and hundreds of them is completely false. And sometimes I would like to think that people that know us would give us the benefit of the doubt. But the fact of the matter is, if I'm not saying anything about it, and you got all these people that are saying something about it, then what they're saying is going to sound more true because nobody truly knows each other online. Does that make sense? So, like, as much as I put myself out there and I try to be a completely open and vulnerable person, unless you've spent significant time with somebody, like in person, been to their house, hung out with them behind the scenes, you truly really don't know somebody, you know? And so I think I do need to make more statements, like public statements like this, to expose the lies and the deceit and the low level that these people are stooping to. So anyway, Chris from Suburban Geckos, which is one of my leopard gecko idols, if you want to put it that way. He's one of my leopard gecko inspirations, and I still look up to the guy. I can separate his actions and what I don't like about him from himself and what I do like about him. I can separate that. But this elitist group has a really difficult time separating the two. You know what I mean? So, why was I tying that in? Evan, Chris saying that we put lemon frost in our mystery packs, which is not true. Yeah, so just the fact that somebody could speak something that's so far from the truth and other people believe it to be true, that's a problem, right? And so I that's another thing that I feel like the policing system will help with, right? So if somebody doesn't like you, I think this is where I was getting at. If somebody doesn't like you, they can 100% spread lies about you, exaggerated truths, take your words out of context, which was another thing I'll bring up. If you guys like any of the topics I'm talking about right now, tune into the Fauna Radio interview that we'll be doing at the end of this month on Fauna Radio. I don't know why they wouldn't want to do it on my channel here. I've offered many times in the past, but if they want to do it on their channel, that's fine. You know what I mean? I'm going to record it. So that if they try to take it out of context or chop it up and edit it or delete it or something like that because they don't like the way that the conversations went, I'll at least have that evidence to post myself if I need to. So anyway, I listened to a bunch of drama about this whole Slither Inc. thing. And I get it. Drama's not for everybody, you know? But I just wanted to talk right now, just freely, a little bit about the state of the hobby and where it's going. And I definitely think a policing system is coming into play. And I think that MorphMarket is going to pioneer that. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad idea, you know? So when somebody lies about you and wants MorphMarket to come out and inspect your facility, you could get a passing score, and now MorphMarket is going to promote you. And so it works in both favors because I know Darian is very concerned about the health of the animals. So that's why he took it as far as not only removing Slither Inc. from MorphMarket, but he took it as far as putting marketing dollars to make sure that this man never succeeds in any show or any platform anywhere in the world. He really went after this guy. And the reason that he really went after this guy is because Darian has a true heart for animals and animals that are living in poor conditions or just getting neglected or abused. And that's a good thing that he has that kind of heart. And the reason that's a good thing is because if there's people on the fringe, you know what I mean? Like if he went to Slither Inc. and he was like, hey, you got to change a bunch of stuff that's going on here. And Slither Inc. was like, okay, I'll change. And then Slither Inc. changes for the good and increases his standards for the good. Everybody wins. Now Slither Inc. gets backed by MorphMarket, and the animals in Slither Inc.'s care get better care. Because sometimes when people get challenged or defeated, they try to take others down with them, and that's including the animals in this case. So let me give you an example. If Slither Inc. is like, oh, you want to cancel me? You want to try to control the way that I keep animals and take my livelihood from me? Watch this. And he goes even more depraved than he currently is. That's sort of an L. That's sort of a loss for the animals, if that can be prevented. If it can be prevented. Now, the weird thing is, Slither Inc. has had animal control go to his house, right? Because animal control is a real thing. Slither Inc. has had animal control go to his house, as far as I can tell, multiple times, and they've never done anything. So either the animal control in his area truly doesn't have a grasp for reptile care. I don't know how you could, based on the pictures I saw. You know what I mean? I don't know how you could be an animal control person, even if you don't have knowledge of reptiles. Even if you don't have knowledge of reptiles, as an adult human being, you could look at these animals and be like, something's not right here. You know what I mean? So anyway, I think if MorphMarket can police the hobby in a way where it incentivizes for both parties that are wanting to benefit each other to work it out to benefit the animals, I think that could be a win. You know what I mean? So RMB Reptiles, yeah, you can go and do that. Been busy myself setting up the new racks. That's cool. The industry is in a weird place right now. Lots of change happening. Change can be good for sure. Just gonna go with the flow. I know. For real. Just gonna go with the flow. For real. What can you do? You know? Actually, I was just talking about a Texas Reptile Expo coming up in September with another Arizona person that works with a breeder friend of mine out here that breeds bearded dragons. They're going to be going to Arlington in September, I believe. And so I might try to get in with him and vend with him. He does bearded dragons. I do leopard geckos, so it would be separate. I don't know if he would want me to split the expenses with him, but I might try to do that if there's time. If not, I plan to fly out to different shows around the country, probably starting in 2024. So starting in 2024, I'll not only do in-person shows, but I'll also start flying out to shows. Right now, I'm just trying to get the whole operation flowing with all of our employees taking care of all the animals while I'm gone, kind of thing. So like releasing all care to them so that they could, not all care, but I mean a significant amount of it, so that I could feel comfortable leaving for periods of time and whatnot, you know. I heard a noise in my basement. You ever watch those TikToks where people are just like in the woods, like riding their bike, or like looking for ghosts or whatever? It's crazy. I deal with auditors 24/7. Can you open up one of the tubs of geckos? I would, but I mean, I can pull out this gecko's scratching to get out. Let me pull this one out. Hi, baby. I'm gonna pull this one out because she was scratching to get out. Just so I can have one out here. Having a contract government job can be stressful sometimes. I believe it. The goatee, yeah, I was shaving, and then I was like, I'm going to do the goatee again. You know, there's this funny TikTok that I sent my wife. I'm always sending her funny TikToks. And this funny TikTok was about men when they shave and they purposely leave their mustache and they like walk up to their wife and they're like, hey, I think I'm going to keep this. So I sent that to my wife as a joke because I do that with her sometimes. I'm shaving and I just do things crazy and do crazy haircuts and all that. I like the idea of accountability system with consequences. I've been thinking a lot about what that could look like. Yeah, because we have no policing system. So it's like, how can you expect others to be accountable in this hobby when there is no punishment? You know, and for the longest time, there was no punishment. But now with MorphMarket, there's punishment. But you don't just want to punish people. You want to encourage change. And so that's what I mean by, you know what I mean? Like, leave your feelings out of it. If you go over to someone's facility and they're just crap, give them a chance to change. And if they change for the good, promote them. And then do regular audits or even surprise audits. And if they have enough infractions to where they violate the standard of keeping that they claim to uphold the last time you were there, then you could ban or suspend or take away their badge or whatever the case. But incentivize breeders to actually do the higher standard thing. Because if you don't, you're just going to make them upset. They're just going to do worse for their animals. And then the animals lose in that situation. So like, leave your pride out of it. You know, all of us have pride inside that's like, I really hate that person, or I really hate that thing that person does or did. Leave that off to the side and try to work with the person to actually better the care of the animals. So anyway, I feel like Darian is the type of person that can do that, because he wasn't just kicking people off left and right, MorphMarket, that he didn't like. He was actually looking for evidence and testimony and all that kind of stuff before he ever made moves against people, you know? Now, this Slither Inc. is the only person that I've known that got kicked off of MorphMarket, but I heard there was others, you know what I mean? And so, good night to y'all who are leaving. This is Gossip Channel for right now, but we'll probably be back with more gecko talk tomorrow. But we're talking a little bit about where the hobby is right now and where it's going. You know, I mean, it's gone through so many changes, and I just think it's interesting to talk about those changes. And I'm really tired, so I don't want to like get up and be like showing off geckos and stuff like that. So I apologize if you don't want to be like me to be talking about this kind of thing, but it's just what I figured I would talk about tonight. So whoops. I am on my phone, so let's see. Let me give you a perfect example. Let me give you a perfect example right now. Somebody said something that I would prefer does not go in our chat. So Sam, the animator, I don't know if any of you guys read what he said, but we don't want to talk about any innuendos or anything like that. So Sam, I would love for you to stay here and be a part of this group, but if I see more messages like that, I'm going to have to remove you. So like, that's an example of like separating the action of the person and like giving somebody a second chance and communicating with them what you need for them to be here on this platform or whatever the case is, you know? Like, you know, it's just, you just got to try to work with people, you know? Your midnight blizzard is going to lay tonight. That's good. That's good. That's good. So I don't know how long I'll be on here. I kind of just wanted to see who's up this late at night, you know? I was even thinking of going to TikTok or Instagram. But then I was like, you know what? The thing that I really like about YouTube is that a lot of people watch the conversation back, so you feel like it's not wasted breath or time. You know what I mean? Instagram does have a feature where people could watch it back, but people rarely watch back Instagram lives. At least the people that, at least I'll speak for myself. I rarely watch back Instagram lives. I don't know why, but I'll watch YouTube lives all day long that I miss. You know, Trap Talk. Now this new channel, R&B's channel, Animals at Home podcast. Fauna Radio is a podcast that I still watch. Evan from Strength and Leos is a podcast that I still watch. Like, I'll watch all of these podcasts back on YouTube. Maybe that's just because I'm more active on YouTube, but if I was only active on Instagram, then Denise, hi Denise. So Denise and John's new show, I really like it. I think it's really cool. It's different. I think it's going to be awesome for the hobby. And again, it seems like both of them are level-headed people to where they're going to be able to conduct the show in a way that is like non-judgmental for the most part. I mean, they might have certain judgments and proclamations that they make to a certain degree, but I'll give an example. I was watching the show with Denise, and I'm not sure if I heard her correctly, but I was watching the show with Denise, and they were talking about somebody's gecko, and Denise was like saying good things about the gecko, but then she was like, I wouldn't buy the gecko just because I don't see eye to eye with this person. And she didn't even say what they don't see eye to eye with, but she was able to compliment the person's gecko, show the person's pictures, disagree with the person on some level, and kind of keep moving forward. That's the type of mindset that the MorphMarket Police, I'm going to call it the MorphMarket Police Academy, I feel like could have the possibility to do, like a non-judgmental is not the right word. Discrepancy, non-partial, right? So like in this world, you have people that are partial. They really are, they're on your side. So they're going to judge everything by that standard. And then you have people that are on the opposite side, and then you have people that are non-partial, in the middle, non-biased. You know what I mean? They're there to analyze both sides and come up with a happy medium. And I feel like MorphMarket could really do that. Like, I feel like Darian is doing that already, you know? So pretty cool. Bam Bam with the police. Yeah, so I've been drinking a lot of water too, so I feel like I'm gonna remember when we were doing the giveaway and I was like having to take a leak like every 5 minutes. It was crazy. I'm gonna hold it though. I'm gonna hold it and not go. So yeah, I feel like the rise of social media is starting to hold people more accountable. It's also starting to cause for more divisions because people get cliquey, right? They're like, oh, this person doesn't like this person, and because I am with this person, I cannot like this person too. There's this whole thing that happens like in high school where it gets cliquey. But I also think there's a rising trend in social media that is against the cliques and is more non-binary and non-judgmental and non-biased. And, you know, I don't know if it's always going to be this way, but I feel like, you know, because people can do what they want and they have their own prerogatives, but I feel like people like Denise, ourselves, John, are all a little bit more on the non-biased side, meaning that we might not agree completely with what each other does, but for the most part, we relate on core competencies. And also, even if we don't relate on those core competencies, we also don't see anything that's completely devastating or detrimental in the other person's actions or behavior, compared to I'll give you an example. So, like the whole us experimenting with lemon frost and only breeding 70. Now I'm going to have to specify and say that we've only ever bred but 80. Let's just say 80 visual lemon frost. Never did any super lemon frost because we knew that if we can't fix the normal lemon frost, there's no point in trying the super. And so we were working on fixing the normal lemon frost before ever even trying that. We got to a certain number, which was about 70 to 80. And I said, let's stop here. Let's observe what happens over the next 5 years. And then we could see what happens. And if certain animals are not showing any symptoms whatsoever, maybe we select those animals to try a subsequent generation with or something like that, right? Which, by the way, this is exactly what the scientist that studied lemon frost, Dr. Longgown Guo, this is exactly what he said should happen. He was like, you should outcross them to wild types, and if they don't exhibit issues after 5 years or after a few years, you could try to breed those that don't exhibit issues. That's what the doctor of biology for medical research was suggesting, right? And we were trying that way before he ever even suggested this, with a small limited pool of 70 to 80 geckos that we were studying. So if somebody's like, oh, you're breeding hundreds and hundreds of these, and they're just saying that because they want to try to take you down, like, you got to correct people. You know what I mean? So that's why I say that, so I can correct them. And now I completely forgot what I was talking about or why I was bringing that up. But yeah, this is a nice gecko. I came up with a new way of taking photos. So you could go over to our website, geekygeckocreations.com, and you can see the way that I'm taking photos. It's really interesting. It's been working really good for me. It helps me capture the essence of, I feel like the quality of the animal in person translates really well to the photo, which is not always easy to do. And it's directly in my room, so I don't have to like go outside to do it. And all that kind of stuff. And even when I went outside, sometimes the lighting outside wasn't the best way to go about doing it. But why was I bringing that up? I'm going to take a sip of cold water. If any of you guys remember the connection or the point that I was trying to make. Oh, hi, little one. I just realized the other day also that I am 40 pounds heavier than when I originally got married. I just can't even believe that I've gained 40. Like, that's a lot of pounds. And I can't believe that I never really pictured myself going that off the deep end. Cause like even in my teenage years, I was always a little husky, and then into my sub-adult adult years, I started working out a little bit more and kind of like leaning out and stuff like that. But I have a wide frame. I'm like a bigger bodied person, and so if I let myself go and I don't have good eating habits, I quickly start to build a bigger, huskier, chunkier frame, you know. But I never pictured myself gaining 40 pounds or being above like 185. I've never pictured myself being above 185, and now I'm at like 220. It's a little depressing. The thing about your setup, you hold back too many, just my opinion. That's a valid opinion. But I have a reason for why I hold back so many, is because okay, let me take a leak real quick, and then I'm going to come back so I can explain this. Because I think you bring up a good point. It's a very valid point, but I feel like I need a couple sentences to explain it, you know? So I'm going to let that gecko chill there. Take a leak. I'll be right back. Guys, I remember what I was saying. My wife is laughing at me because I remember what I was saying after taking a leak. So let me finish what I was saying before, and then I'll go back to the new thing. Oh shoot, don't leave me again. Don't leave me. Denise's show, core competencies. I shouldn't have said that. I should have just said what it was. But look at this cute little gecko's face. Oh gosh, I can't believe I just spaced on it again. Maybe I need to go take another leak. Hold on. I'm going to give myself 1 second to see if I can bring that thought back. I was thinking of Chris from Suburban lying about us. Oh, I got it. Okay, I won't say who this is out here in Arizona, but I was talking with somebody out here in Arizona, and they're aware of they're aware of that we experimented with lemon frost in the past, and they didn't agree with it. But they also said it wasn't one of those topics that you should go beating somebody's door down to try to disrupt the person's life or cancel them in cancel culture, right? So he told me this flat out. He was like, if you are showing videos of yourself abusing the geckos, like hitting the geckos or harming the geckos in some kind of way, he's like, this would be a very different conversation. I'd be beating down your door trying to get you to stop. I get that. Are you laughing at me? Oh, never mind. Whitney's not even paying attention to me. So that brings up a really good point, is there's certain points in this hobby that are worth beating down somebody's door for. In the example of Slither Inc. When 200 videos surface of really to the 10th power bad husbandry care and ethical practices surface, undeniable, that's a situation where something absolutely, a line needs to be drawn in the sand, and a decision has to be made whether this person should be promoted or not. But when there are questionable things, such as, should we experiment with Enigma? Should we experiment with lemon frost? Should we keep geckos in tubs? Should we give enrichment to our geckos? I realize these are different levels of severity, but I don't think any one of those levels hit the point where you should purposely make it your life's vendetta. I'm pretty sure I just completely used that word wrong. Your life's mission to take somebody out. I don't think any of those topics, and that's exactly what this person said to me, and I get it. I agree with them for the most part. So now, moving on to our holdbacks. The only reason that we held back so many, there's a few reasons for me, right? Reason number one, you can only improve your breeders by buying new stock or making it yourself. And we bought a bunch of stock, and then from that point, I wanted to cross all these different lines, diversify genetics, all that good stuff, and make my own stock. And then eventually I will infuse new high quality genetics into that stock. And so, but it was very important that I make a plethora of new stock so that I don't have to buy it. Because you could make a high quality gecko for $25. Food, labor, electricity cost, you could make a new gecko for $25, or you could buy one for $2,000. Does that make sense? Hun, can you bring me a charger, please? With the wire? And my coffee, can you heat it up for 30 seconds in the microwave? Pretty please? My wife's so nice. So I wanted to make my breeding operation based off of the few 100 geckos that I already had, and then the Black Knights, I had to start that from scratch. So like we only started with like 5 Black Knight breeders, like females. Now I think we have like including thank you, hon. Including crosses and all that kind of stuff. I feel like we got like 50 to 70 or maybe even more. So like I had to set myself up for success. Ah. That's not going to work. That is not going to work. Okay, do I have a plug somewhere else here? Oh, I have a extension cord. Boom. We're extended. Uh-oh, 3%. We are really, really failing here. Okay. Hopefully that charges. Now, here's a couple things about the leopard gecko hobby. Geckos don't move. They don't sell for that much money. So, if you're doing this full time, like we're doing this full time, I need to make about $100,000 a year. Let's just say gross. Grossly, I need to make $100,000. And then minus expenses and all that, that might turn into like 50 to 70 or something. But I'm not even paying myself yet, so that would actually turn into zero. But anyway, if you make about $100,000 a year in gross reptile sales, that's a good standard for one person to replace their income. So like I was working at Allstate Insurance before this, and I was making about $50,000 a year at Allstate. Oh, thank you, hon. See, I even forgot I asked her to bring me this. I was making about $50,000 a year at Allstate Insurance. My goal was to take this business and replace that salary. So to replace that salary, I need to pay myself $50,000 a year. I need to pay the employees, which could be anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000 a year. And then, of course, you need to pay for expansion and all that. But let me just use the $100,000 as a nice round number. To make $100,000 in leopard geckos in today's market is very, very difficult. But back when Denise was doing it, I don't know if she could share how much she was making. It was probably even difficult back then, but from what she says, when leopard geckos were first getting started, they were selling for much higher dollar, much more frequently, much more quickly. There was less breeders, and so less competition. Now there's a ton of competition, a ton of breeders, a ton of geckos. They're selling for arguably 90% less than what they were 20 years ago. Now, there are some morphs that do sell for a lot of money. But to make those morphs, you need to buy those morphs as breeders, and so you're going to be spending a lot of money. And so that's what it comes down to is, do you want to make your inventory, your breeders, or do you want to buy them all? Joe from Wildcard Geckos came into the hobby. I don't want to speak numbers because I don't know if he wants me to say this, but Joe came in with a very business mindset. And I know because he's I feel like he told me or he's told others, but I just won't say anything unless he tells me it's okay to go public with it, but I know he's invested a lot of money into his stock. Now, just because you've invested a lot of money into your stock does not mean you'll be able to resell it for a lot of money. You'll probably sell some of them for a decent amount of money, but as a newer breeder, you don't have the accolades, the following, the social media presence that the person you bought it from has. So you buy a Cypher leopard gecko from John for $2,000, and then you try to sell your own Cypher for $2,000. It's not going to be as easy as John selling a Cypher for $2,000. You know what I mean? Because if somebody could buy a Cypher from you or a Cypher from the guy that created the project, they're going to go to the guy that created the project, unless you have better marketing or customer service, or you develop friends, or you draw in those customers by luck, which happens, or they just don't know that John created the project. So like, you will get some sales, but it's not going to be as much as the original breeder. So why was I bringing that up? Oh, you need a lot of geckos. You might have to sell that Cypher for $500 if you want to make any money. So now you have to sell 4 geckos at $500 to make the same amount of money that John is selling 1 gecko at $2,000. And so I came into this with a strategy in mind. My strategy was, I need a ton of geckos, because my competition out there has been doing this for 20 plus years, and they have their own audience. They have their own loyal fan base and customers. I need a differentiation factor. And my differentiation factor was, number one, I'm on social media. Number two, I talk openly with people. Number three, I can be flexible on my price because of how many I have. And so that's why I've held back so many geckos over the years, is so that I could be flexible on price, so that I can, it was really a business perspective, so that I can improve the lineages, because here's the fact of the matter. In leopard geckos, we're working with a ton of polygenetic traits. So let me give you this as an example. Let's say Frank breeds 50 I'm trying to think of how to put this close. Okay, let me put it this way. Let's say Frank has 50 Black Knight cross females, and I breed pure Black Knight males to those 50%. Let's say they're even 50%. That's pretty low percent, right? They're 50% Black Knight females, but there's 50 of them. And then let's say somebody else has 2 high quality females and 2 high quality Black Knights, 1 male, 1 female, pitch black as they could be. First of all, you're relying upon that male's sperm being fertile. You're relying upon that female having a good season to make babies. But let's just say you have a great season and you make 10 babies. And then you compare that to me, and let's say I have a great season and I make 10 times 50 is 500 babies. So I make 500 babies from a pure Black Knight crossed into 50% Black Knights, and you make 10 babies that are pure Black Knight to pure Black Knight. Who's going to end up with more high quality animals? I would bank to say, not only would the animals I make be less inbred, but they would also be darker. I mean, I would have more darker animals because of the law of statistics of variance, you know? the 2 dark black knight geckos are not going to produce 100% dark babies. Let's just say they produce 50% dark babies, 50% medium babies. But the 5, so that would be 5. And that's really good odds. Let's say they produce 5 pitch black babies and then 5 medium black babies. And then you got my 500 geckos here. Let's say 10, let's just say 10%. 1 out of 10 of those babies is pitch black. Or even 1 out of 20. 5% of those babies are pitch black. That's, if my math is correct me if my math is wrong. That's 20 pitch black babies and then hundreds of medium to high quality babies. You know what I mean? So I hope my point is coming across. When you are trying to breed for quality, quantity matters. Because you have more odds to choose from. So I hope that makes sense. And I hope that doesn't... I know that that's got to be disheartening to people in a way, right? I know it is. How can I compete against that? How can I compete against Frank if he's making 100 super dark black knights every single year and I'm barely struggling to make 2 or 1? I know that that can be disheartening, but maybe you could also consider what I'm saying about numbers and start implementing it yourself. And then also, don't be afraid of hard work. Like, I've worked really, really hard to get myself out there, to build a website, to build a brand, to build social media presence and all that kind of stuff. So, like, if I benefit from that, that's the fruits of my labor. You know, now, glory to God, I couldn't do anything without him, right? And I sort of leave my success in his hands because at the end of the day, it's not about me. But there is a correlation to how hard you work and the results that you see. If you kick back and you're like, you know what? I bought 2 high-quality black knight leopard geckos, and I produced babies, and they should sell for $2,000, and I'm not going to do any marketing. I'm not going to put any work in. They should just sell. People should be kissing my feet because of how much I paid for those parents. It doesn't work that way. I mean, you might get a couple lucky sales, but for the most part, you have to sell yourself, and you have to sell your animals. You can't just sit back and not do anything. I mean, maybe the big names in the hobby, like John from Gecko Boa, can just sit back, but that's because everybody's referring people to him. They're like, oh, you want a gecko? Go to John. But here's the but. And Chris from Suburban Gecko is experiencing this but right now. At some point, the people you sell to are going to become your competition. And they're not going to be telling people, go to such and such. They're going to be saying, I got such and such. Oh, you're looking for a black knight? I got you. Matter of fact, here's my black knights. I'm going to pay for advertising, blah, 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 and put my, and they're going to be taking customers from John and Chris. So if John and Chris from Gecko Boa and Suburban Gecko, 2 of the biggest names in leopard geckos, if they don't stay on top of their grind and their hustle, they too will begin to fall back and lose sales, and maybe they're okay with that because they're still doing all right. But if you want to do well in this hobby, you really have to push yourself. It's not going to come easy. So I hope to be real and upfront and open with you guys about my strategy and what I do and why I do it. And you could take that in one of 2 ways. I realize it's probably going to hurt, and you're going to be like, dang, that's tough, that's discouraging. But find a way to be competitive, like find a way to be relevant. This world is not a handout. By any means, this world is not a handout. You got to work really hard, you know? And I've worked really hard to get here, you know what I mean? Even despite all of the naysayers that are trying to take us down, I've worked really hard to get to where I'm at, you know? And so glory to God again, because I couldn't do nothing without him, and I'll only be as successful as he allows me to be. And at the end of the day, it's not about how successful I am, but how successful he is and his kingdom, you know, because I truly believe he exists. But if we're just talking about earthly standards, like not even talking about heavenly standards and heavenly goals, but earthly standards and earthly goals, it's rare that anybody ever becomes successful by not doing any work. You know, I watched why is his name spacing on me right now? The Irish MMA guy. Why is his name spacing on me? Broke his leg, came back, fought some more. Now he's a businessman. I can't, for the life of me, know why I can't remember his name. Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor has a series on Netflix about how he became so successful. Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm in the last episode of the Arnold Schwarzenegger story that's on Netflix right now. Amazing looking at this guy's history and why he did what he did. But at the same time, the people that become hyper successful, like Conor McGregor and Arnold Schwarzenegger, they were both driven by a desire to be the best. The best of the best of the best of the best, and they wouldn't settle for less. And not everybody has that much of a desire. So you don't have to go to that extreme. But those are very good episodes. Those are very good shows on Netflix, and I would suggest that you watch both of those if you're into that kind of thing. I really like Arnold, and I really like Conor, so it was just cool to see some of their highlights and where they came from and all that kind of stuff. It's not my number one goal to... I mean, I guess in a way it is. Like, in a way, my goal is to become, like, the biggest, most well-known, most public figure for leopard geckos, because I really like leopard geckos. But, so I'm doing everything that I can to shoot for that. But if I don't get there, that's okay. Like, I'm okay with that if I don't get there, because that's not the most important thing in my life. You know what I mean? But it is a goal, and I'll be honest with that goal. So that's this was a long roundabout why I have so many holdbacks. Another thing that I forgot to mention: some females will not lay for you. Some females will lay 50% duds for you that season. Some females are going to pass away. Some males are going to pass away. And also for leopard geckos, you have a small window of their most breedable years, between years 1 and like 6, let's say, or maybe even 5, before you need to replace that animal. And it takes a year to grow that animal up to replacement. So let me use this last example before I move on from why I have so many holdbacks. If I need 500 females to make $100,000 a year in leopard geckos or more, and let's say 10% of those females I need to replace the next year because they're at the end of their breeding season. They're at the end of their breeding life. 10% of 500 is 50. And that's just 10%. So if I need to replace 10% of my girls every single year, That's 50 girls minimum that I need to replace every single year. And those girls need to be grown up for a year before I can breed them. So that means that in reality, I really need to be holding back more than that 50. I don't know. My brain is trying to compute how it all works. But if you kind of follow the lines of what I'm saying, it's not just holdbacks to replace females that you need to be aware of. You need animals to replace animals that are not going to breed, you know? So if you have 20 females and only 10 of them have a good season for you, and they each have 10 eggs, that's 100 eggs, right? But if you have 100 females and 50 of them, which is half of them, have a good season for you, that's 500 eggs. So it's just the law of numbers of what it's going to take to be successful as a business. And that's all. So it's from the reason I have so many holdbacks is because it's a business. I need a certain amount of monetary turnover for that year. I also need to replace females that are going out of breeding and then new females coming into breeding. I need to improve my stock. And I can do that quicker by holding back more animals. And then I need vast amounts of more animals so that I can be more flexible on price and I can make the money that I need to make in a very, very competitive market. If leopard geckos were selling for $1,000 a piece, yeah, I wouldn't need 1,000 or more of them a season. I would just need 100, and there's my goal. 100 geckos at $1,000 a season is $100,000, but that's not the case. I don't know anybody that's making $100,000 off leopard geckos just selling 100 geckos a year. Maybe John, but even if he is, it took him 20 years to build up the reputation to be able to do that, and I'm trying to do it in 5 years or less. Like, build up the amount of monetary income to where I can say that I'm making $100,000 a year off of not even just leopard geckos. My goal for reptiles was making $100,000 a year gross. That includes tegus, that includes ball pythons, which we haven't even begun to sell ball pythons yet, and those are very high dollar projects that we're working on. Sailfin dragons, I'm not really going to be breeding and selling those anytime soon. Gargoyle geckos, crested geckos, I'm not selling any crested geckos, but gargoyle geckos I'll have. But $100,000 for everything that I breed is my goal. However, because leopard geckos is my biggest passion, I would like at least half of that to come from leopard geckos. So I would like to make $50,000 a year off of just leopard gecko sales minimum. So for the levels of aspiration and goals that I have, it takes a lot of holdbacks. You know what I mean? So chirp, chirp. Phantom. Denise said she would make easily 100K a year back then. Crazy. And they were just selling normals. I'm being a little exaggerative, but yeah, they didn't even have the quality of what we have today. What we have in the hobby today is so, so beautiful. But everybody and their brother and their mother and their sister has it. You know? I'll be honest with you. Every decent breeder that has spent a few $1,000s on tangerines, if you go into their collection, they're all going to have something that's relatively close to what the next breeder has. So at that point, how do you out-compete your competitor? It has to be on price, and it has to be on social media, and it has to be on marketing. You have to find other ways to gain market share. You know, There's two different concepts we're talking about here. We're talking about hobby and business, but they mesh together when you do this for full time. You know what I mean? They do mesh together. Yeah, thank you, Conor McGregor. My favorite gecko. What is my favorite gecko? My favorite gecko. My favorite gecko. Do you want to see the $20,000 gecko that I posted? Mind you, I posted a $20,000 gecko. Where did I even put it? I don't even know where it is. It's on that shelf somewhere. If one of you guys can look on my website for our $20,000 gecko, let me know the ID code that is on that gecko, and I'll pull it out and I'll explain why it's $20,000 and why I'm kind of not necessarily blowing smoke, but why I posted it so ridiculously high to gain attention. It was to gain attention, but it was also to drive home a point that I'm going to probably talk about on Fauna Radio, because they're probably going to bring this up and be like, how do you have a $20,000 leopard gecko posted? You know what I mean? The point that I'm going to bring up is the point of driving this hobby to the next level with your vision and with possibilities and whatnot. But let me grab a different gecko. Oh, I found it. I just randomly pulled her and found it. So originally, I posted this gecko because she has a really cool because she has a really cool head stamp that looks like a question mark, an infinity sign, a Thanos sign, a Moana hook, what else? A Superman symbol on her head. I originally posted her for more money than I normally would. Normally, a gecko with an interesting head pattern would be anywhere from $100 to $150, because the more interesting the head pattern, the more money. So because her head pattern was really interesting, I posted her for $200. And then a thought came across my head. When have I ever seen a leopard gecko with an infinity sign on their head? Never. I've never seen a gecko with an infinity sign on their head. Maybe it's happened. Denise has been around for a long time. She works with a lot of the same lines that I do. I mean, like the hyperxanthic, bold kind of stuff, you know, because we were talking about one gecko that I had that would be great for her Z project. And this kind of comes from the same gecko that produced the gecko that she was interested in. So if, let's just say, this is the only gecko in the world that has an infinity sign on its head, can you truly put a price tag on that animal? Remember, if we want a hobby to succeed, we have to create a demand for new projects. And the idea for a new project that I had for this one was, what if I could start a line of geckos that have infinity signs on their head, or question marks, or Moana hooks, right? That is something that I could work towards with this gecko, but I've never seen it in any other geckos. So from a breeding standpoint, this gecko is worth an extreme amount of money, because you can't just find a gecko with an infinity symbol on its head. And from a collector's standpoint, you can't find a gecko with an infinity symbol on its head. It's kind of like, I watch these shows like Pawn Star. She jumped. No, don't go under. Okay. I'm going to flip my chair around here. I watch these shows like Pawn Stars and all that kind of stuff. They're all about collecting memorabilia, right? So they'll have like sports memorabilia, history memorabilia, presidential stuff. You know what I mean? So don't poop on me. Don't poop on me, Infinity Girl. Don't do it. I see you raising your butt there. Don't do it. Don't. Okay. I think we're past the poop hurdle here. When you really, really think about it, what makes her valuable is that her head marking is a recognizable. Oh, she peed on me though. She did pee. I'm gonna rinse her off. Man, I know geckos, and I just feel like this girl is gonna poopy. But hopefully not. If she poopies, I'll try to have her poopy in my hand here so I can catch it. Recognizable symbols are probably some of the most important things in the world to us, right? MorphMarket has an infinity sign that's a snake in an infinity shape as their logo. So I actually sent a picture of this to Darian, right? And I was like, hey, look, this gecko has an infinity sign on its head. Now, I'm not saying Darian would ever pay $20,000 for this animal, but you have to think about it from the perspective of if somebody was in the market for an animal that has a symbol on it that is recognizable and important to them, what would they be willing to pay for it if nobody else in the entire world has one? So this is the type of mindset that is going to drive the leopard gecko hobby forward, is by bringing a collector's mindset. For the longest time now, the last 10 years, leopard geckos have been a little bit more in the pet-centered mindset. But if we could bring them back to a collector's mindset with the general public, there's always been a small niche of people that have the collection in mind. But if you could bring the whole market as a whole to get buzz and infatuation and desire back to leopard geckos, because there's different projects and things that people are doing that's new, that is what is going to bring new life into the leopard gecko world. Now, this is not a perfect infinity symbol, right? But it's pretty darn close. And with line breeding, of me breeding her to other geckos and selecting back geckos that have you peeing still? Good grief, girl. And breeding her back to geckos that have that symbol on their head, you could, in theory, create a line of geckos with infinity signs on their head, and then you could breed that into Tangerine, Black Knight, all kinds of stuff. It's the same thing with my idea about the Sailor Moon project for leopard geckos, Black Knights. Creating an all-black gecko with yellow circles going down the back of the gecko, because some Black Knights have circles. So all I'm saying is, it doesn't hurt the hobby to come up with creative ideas like this, especially when the animal has a recognizable symbol. If the animal just has a completely random symbol, it doesn't really mean much. But if it has a recognizable symbol that is replicatable and desirable to be a collector's item, now you're talking about something. So, yeah, thank you for the ID bait. Jeremy, what's going on, Jeremy? Supreme Gecko. No, we were talking earlier, Wally, about the Slither Inc. thing and where the hobby's going. So the whole first hour of this was about Slither Inc. It was about MorphMarket, potentially creating a police department for the hobby and how that could be a good thing, how they could send out auditors to people's facilities and people would get a score and they could improve that score, or they could be banned or suspended or promoted if they improve that score from MorphMarket. And that could be a good way for businesses that have not changed in a long time and their standards could change. That could be a good way for them to increase their score and get promoted more by MorphMarket, and that way the animals don't suffer. Because we were talking about, if you just ban somebody and kick them out, they're going to keep doing what they're doing, and maybe even worse, out of spite for getting banned, and then the animals suffer. You know what I mean? So we talked about that for the whole first hour. We also talked about how I'm supposed to go on Fauna Radio in 2 weeks, and how that's going to be interesting. But am I just way behind, Mystery Gang? Not that I don't trust you. I don't trust anyone. Rick from PS. What is PS? PS. PS. I didn't think I'd be on this. She's doing that. When a gecko raises like that, they might poo or pee. It usually starts with a pee and then ends with a poo. Plus, she's really, really chunky, this girl. And I know when geckos are really chunky like this and they're agitated, they can definitely shoot that poo at you. You know what I mean? So it's funny. Sometimes when we go to birthday parties, we'll bring a couple of ball pythons. And in the past, like one ball python would poo on somebody, and then like all the ones that are out at that moment would start pooing, and the kids are like, they're pooing. But now we got some ball pythons that won't poo at all, but we had this one instance where we had like 2 or 3 ball pythons out, and they all simultaneously like pooed at the same time in the kids' hands. So anyway, it could happen, you know. Yeah. Pawn Stars. Yeah. Oh, is that Rick from Pawn Stars? They don't trust anyone. Yes. You know, I kind of wonder about the validity of the things that they're selling. I mean, they get analyzed. These items get analyzed if they are legit, but there are counterfeits out there and all that kind of stuff. So, like if somebody comes to you with a card and they're like, hey, this is a legit card that's worth $1 million. And then they analyze it, and their analyzing team says, yep, this card is real. It's worth $1 million. I mean, I guess that's enough proof by trusting in the analyzing team. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you're putting a lot of trust into that team to analyze things for you. But it's good to see you, Wally. Been a long time since we kind of chatted. I've been really busy. I haven't done any live streams in a couple weeks, but hopefully we'll start to bring back some more interviews. I would like to interview Darian from MorphMarket. I might want to interview MJ from Trap Talk, just because I think he's a cool guy. I feel like he has a very adult vibe though. And so I don't know if that would be best for putting on the channel. I'm sure he could not curse. I know he can. I've heard him talk about it and stuff like that. But still, I know how he gets fired up over certain topics and stuff. I think he'd be good. I think he'd be a good guest. He's really passionate about the animals. He cares a lot about water changes for animals, neglect, obviously, and that's where he could get kind of fired up. I was going to tell him because he gets to a point where he says, this is his own words, where he can't control himself when somebody is abusing animals or neglecting animals, he's just going to go off the wall. That's what he said. But I feel like I can control myself pretty well and actually conduct an interview with somebody. And so I was going to actually suggest to him hey, I mean, he doesn't really know me that much. I'm going to try to get to know him more. We did a show with him. I'm going to try to get to know him more in person at the Reptile Super shows in California and stuff. so that he can learn to know me more and trust me more and whatnot. But I was going to suggest to him and be like, hey, look, if we could get Samson Pruitt, which is the owner of Slither Inc., that's revolving around all this controversy, if you could get him on your channel, I'll conduct the interview. I'll ask the questions. Like, I know that MJ would have his own questions, obviously, but I could conduct the interview no problem and try to draw out some conclusions and give Samson an opportunity to at least explain himself or say his side, and people don't have to agree with his side. You know what I mean? I feel like I could do that. I could separate myself from the emotional side of things, kind of, block those pictures out of my head that I saw from the videos and all of that, and just conduct an interview, I feel like that would be, I feel like it doesn't even matter at this point. Like, even if someone has an interview with Samson, like, where would that interview go? Like, he's not denying it. He's not denying that these are his animals. So the only place the interview can go is who is okay with this and who is not okay with this. And let me bring up one point on that factor. Okay. If you saw the condition that your food was processed in. You know what's funny? I was just watching a vegan versus livestock farmer debate. And it's kind of the same as the reptile world. You have two sides of the argument that are so far from each other that there's really no middle ground. You're either going to fall on one side or the other. And here's the side. You're either going to fall on the side of, well, I don't necessarily care that the animals were abused, as long as I get a healthy animal, and as long as he refunds me if the animal is not healthy or replaces it, I got no beef with him. Whatever. They're just animals, right? You got that side of things. Someone's going to clip that and be like, look, Frank's a terrible person. Again, out of context. That's why I'm going to be recording my entire interview with Fauna Radio, because if they try to take it down or clip it, or someone tries to clip it, I can be like, here's the full interview. Because they've already taken, not them, not Fauna Radio, but I mean the people that are naysayers against us have already taken so much out of context and blown it way out of proportion that they're going to try to do that more, obviously, because that's their agenda. But yeah, so you got people on the side of, I don't care if an animal's abused, you know what I mean? And then you got people on the side of animal rights activism that's like, this is completely unjust and this just cannot take place in our hobby. So you got two sides of that coin. And I get it. There will always be two sides of that coin. There will always be, for lack of a better term, there will always be people that are okay with crumminess and people that are not okay with crumminess. And then there might be people in the middle, like myself, that are just like, I don't agree with it. I'm not necessarily okay with it. But at the same time, I'm not going to actively make it my life's mission to take it down. You know what I mean? So you're gonna have people that fall on one side, the other, and then you're gonna have some kind of non-binary, not non-binary, sorry, binary. Wait, non-binary. Yeah, you'll have some non-binary people that fall in the middle of that spectrum. But let me pose this. Let me play devil's advocate for a second here. And let me preface this by saying that I truly think that animals should be kept in a condition where they're healthy and hygienic. I don't necessarily think that enrichment is the biggest thing for a breeder to focus on, but I think hygienic and healthy is the standard for me, personally. That's the standard. And what I saw in Samson's operation was 1,000,000 times to the 1,000,000th degree from hygienic and healthy. Now, that's just what I saw in pictures. I didn't go to his place. But what I saw in pictures was bad enough to where I was like, it's probably going to be like that in person. Holy cow. My phone is charging, but it's on 1%. So I don't think it's going to make it. So I'm going to end on this point. If you saw the condition that your livestock and your dinner came from McDonald's or Chick-fil-A or the burrito that you just ate, if you saw how those pigs were killed, how those cows were killed, how those chickens are kept, it's the same as Samson Pruitt. Point closed. So just because it's a pet that's kept in terrible conditions, does it make it any better that it's your dinner that was kept in terrible conditions? I'm just playing devil's advocate. We are all hypocrites to a certain degree, and you might bash Samson Pruitt for doing what he's doing, but are you bashing the people that are making your hamburger, your cheeseburgers, in the same conditions as Samson Pruitt? Probably not. Most people aren't, at least, because it's out of sight, out of mind. This just happened to become in sight, and it made it in mind. So consider that. Think about it. It's something to think about. You know what I mean? Yes, we are getting together, Wally, but I don't know that it's going to be positive. I feel like, and this might die, my phone might die, but I feel like Andrew and I are turning a new leaf. And I feel like I would like Gary and I to turn a new leaf, because I truly think Gary's a good person. I mean, I got a couple things I'd like to ask him that might kind of skew my judgment of him. But either way, for the bare bones, I think that Gary is a good guy, and I would like to promote him and, of course, see good things happen to him like I would any human being. But the people behind them, like Seth and Adam and Heidi, and you kind of missed it, Wally, but even Chris from Suburban Geckos, he said something that was completely false, that is defaming and damaging to like our reputation. And I'm just aghast that he's so far off from the truth and he's okay with it. And maybe that's because he doesn't know the truth. So my number one goal with being on Fauna Radio is to tell the truth once and for all, so people know. And it's not just based off of what Adam's saying or Seth is saying or what they're taking out of context. So that's goal number one. But I would also like to bring unity between me and Gary and Andrew. But here's the but. I feel like Seth and Heidi and that crowd, that agenda, I feel like they're going to be pushing Gary so hard to not make nice with me that it could bring some negativity into it. But I'm just going to be as nice as I can and just honest with my statements and upfront. So that's going to be my goal with that live stream. You know what I mean? I got ripped up and down for having you on Supreme Gecko, and my response was that you are a good guy and I wanted to be positive rather than negative. I remember that. And I hope that one of the things that we also brought up, Wally, was there's certain things in this world that a hard line should be drawn. For example, I have no problem saying that I believe Samson Pruitt of Slither Inc., I think he should be caused to make a change. I think he should. Now, I'm not necessarily going to go and like condemn the guy if he doesn't change, but I'm going to make a clear stance and say that he should change. And if he doesn't change, which he hasn't in 20 years, I think that it's fair that he is kicked off of MorphMarket and attempted to be canceled for the level of neglect, abuse, and depravity that is being that he's being accused of. Now, I think somebody should have to be proven guilty. You know, so I feel like this is just what I feel like. I feel like before MorphMarket bans him, which they already banned him, I feel like the police department for our hobby, if we're going to police ourselves, I feel like we should have a just system, and it should not be based off of photos or testimonies of a couple people online. I feel like a full investigation should take place by our police department. If we're going to police ourselves, I feel like to do it just, we should create a department that has auditors, that has enforcers, judges, but it should all be done in a fair way, and he should be tried and convicted by our police department that we're creating before measures are taken against him. So he was banned from MorphMarket, but I think the right move would have rather been suspend him, interview the people, and maybe they did this, interview his past employees, but first get proof that they were past employees and all that kind of stuff. Interview the employees, go to his facility and inspect his facility, view the photos and videos that were shown of his facility with his name on these animals and dates and all that kind of stuff, and take all of that into consideration before you ban the guy and try to cancel him completely. That's just called a justice system, right? So like, innocent until proven guilty. We need a conviction system so that it's fair, right? And people should also be given a chance to change, is one of the things that we were talking about. So that was one thing that I was mentioning. Why did I bring that up? We were talking about, I don't know what it was. Here's Andrew right here. No, would you stop peeing on me, girl? Can we, please? See, she's just peeing on me. Okay, I'm going to put this gecko away now. $20,000 gecko, and she wants to pee on you. Alive this late? Yeah, I know, it's crazy, huh? Yeah, I know, Andrew. I know you. I know that you guys have good standards and whatnot. But I don't know. And this is the thing. I was almost even going to call Andrew, and I still might call Andrew before the live stream, because I don't know if this is going to die, but I have to pee again. So hang tight. I'm going to take a leak. I'm going to come back, say what I need to say. I also know how difficult it is to be sitting on the opposite side of the screen and not get a chance to rebut anything. So I have no plans of saying anything bad, Andrew. But the thumbnail that Gary created, or whoever created the thumbnail, I thought it was a little bit drama provoking, right? It's kind of like, it's this weird, old, unflattering picture of myself, and then above it, it has like insinuating, incriminating emojis, like a $, an X symbol, like he's wrong. It's got I don't know. It's got, the thumbnail screams, for lack of a better term, the thumbnail screams drama, right? And I realize that coming on to your show, we are going to get into a couple dramatic topics, and I'm okay with that. And I know you guys are okay with that. But it would have been nice to have a little bit more. Oh, yeah, there it goes.
Oh, snap. I don't even know if I'm here right now. Am I here right now? I just switched to my laptop just to finish this off real quick, but am I live? Is there anyone here? Oh, 22 people, I think. 22 people watching. So, wow, I didn't realize this many people are on this late. My audio is probably terrible and all that kind of stuff. So I apologize. I probably won't be on here very much longer. I just wanted to complete my thought, and I don't know if Andrew's still here. I don't think he's still here. But yeah, my thought. I was thinking and praying about how I wanted to bring it up with Andrew and respond to it and ask if I wanted to ask for a change in good faith and whatnot. But I think it's okay. Yeah, it's not that bad. And I think the thumbnail is not that bad. And it also does kind of insinuate that there is a little bit of drama. So I'm okay with that. But here's the main thing. This is just the main thing is like, I said a couple weeks ago, I said that people are very important and you don't want to like unnecessarily like put people down or get in fights with people. So when a thumbnail is made that is insinuating that we're going to be fighting, it almost insinuates that that's what that you want to happen. And I think I'm okay with that. I'm okay with a little bit of like playful drama and fighting back and forth, but I'm also really valuing just Gary as a person and Andrew as a person. And I think they're going to do great. I think we're going to have a great episode. So I'll leave it at that. But when I first saw the thumbnail and that they didn't ask me about it first or like what I thought about it, because they could have made like, now I'm not saying you have to respect somebody, but if somebody respects you and they try to paint you in like an unflattering thumbnail, and they're your friend kind of thing, you would think they would come to you and be like, hey, are you okay with this? Let's create this to be a little dramatic, but are you okay with this? And mind you, Andrew and Gary and I mean, I've never even talked to Gary, but I've talked a decent amount to Andrew. I mean, I've talked a little bit with Gary back and forth, but mostly with Andrew. So I would say that me and Andrew were definitely friendly, and but me and Gary were never really friendly. Like back then when all the drama was happening, like he was sending me messages and I was sending him messages, and we weren't like cursing each other out or anything, but we were just on complete opposite sides of the spectrum. So we were never really friendly. But me and Andrew were actually kind of friendly, like actually friendly conversation. And then that all stopped when things escalated, which was partly my fault. I allowed things to escalate to a degree where I was actually making thumbnails and stuff that was provocative to them. And so I stopped doing that because that was no longer my goal. And then now when they made this thumbnail that was a little bit provocative to me, especially without asking me about, am I okay with this? It sort of just was like, well, they don't care. They truly don't care about just trying to be cordial and trying to be, no, I shouldn't say they, I shouldn't lump Andrew in that because I don't know, but I'm pretty sure Gary created the thumbnail. You know what I mean? And again, I'm not like that. It's not that big of a deal, but the reason that it's almost a big deal in my head is because I don't want to get back to that place where we're fighting with each other. Like that's not my goal. However, I do realize that they want to sell the drama a little bit. And that's okay. I'm okay with that. We can sell the drama a little bit. But I was hoping on a personal level to get more friendly with especially Gary, because I'm already kind of still friendly with Andrew right now. We're talking a little bit more back and forth, but I'm not really talking with Gary. Gary hasn't talked to me in a really long time. I've sent him messages and he hasn't replied to that. So my goal would be like to be friends with him. I'm just gonna be upfront with you. My goal would be to be friends with Gary. So for him to make a thumbnail that is kind of disrespectful, it's a disrespectful thumbnail, and then not asking me is definitely disrespectful. It just kind of painted a picture like, oh, he doesn't care. You know what I mean? Which is also okay. Like, that's also okay. But I just didn't want to head into it with that sort of negative vibe. So I even told my wife, I was like, should I have you there? You know what I mean? Like, would having you there help me maybe keep my cool a little bit more, and help them keep their cool a little bit more? But I feel like what the community really wants, this is what the community really wants, is they want me to be by myself. Well, or not the whole community, but especially that, you know, Adam, Heidi, Seth, and all those guys. I almost feel like they will never, ever be friends with me. So it's almost like, what's the point? Well, the point is to show that different opposing views can get along and be cordial and friendly with each other. That's one of the points of me going on the show. The other point is to correct some wrongs that people have assumed about us because of what they've heard from Adam and Heidi and Seth, and some others that have spread some lies as well. So those are my points for going on the show. But I really wanted to make friends with Gary, and I am making friends again with Andrew. So I think that's pretty cool. So we will see what happens. I'm still praying and thinking about it. If you have a guest, gotta respect them, not be rude. Yeah, and here's the thing: if Gary, I don't know if Gary made the thumbnail. I'm just gonna assume he did. But if Gary made the thumbnail and was like, "Hey Frank, like I made the thumbnail a little provocative because I want it to be a little provocative. Are you cool with it?" I'd be like, "Okay, yeah, sure." But they just sent me the link, and I looked at the thumbnail. First of all, they didn't ask me what photo would I prefer to use, what branding would I prefer to use, do you want your logo in there? And these are like basic questions that you ask somebody respectfully that's coming on a show. Even if it's meant to be a dramatic show, you try to treat your guest with respect, you know? And so if you have no respect for me, then okay, I'm okay with that. You don't have to have respect for me. But I was just hoping that we would sort of take that good faith step together of being respectful. But I understand there's a lot of pressure on Gary, and there's a lot of, because Gary kind of carries the show. Like Andrew is with Gary as well, but I feel like there's a lot of pressure on Gary, from Heidi and from Seth and from what's his name? Heidi, Seth, and Adam. There's a lot of pressure on Gary because he's really, really close with those three people, and they really, really don't like us. So because of that, I feel like he's trying to make them happy in a way, if that makes sense. But anyway, I've been praying and thinking about it. Maybe I'll probably call Andrew and at least tell him what I'm thinking, and then he could talk to Gary. And like I said, I'm okay with the thumbnail being the thumbnail. It was more of a matter of principle of what I was hoping to take a step forward with both of them, because they're both podcasters and I'm a podcaster. We're both leopard gecko breeders and in the hobby together. So like, I feel like we should be able to work together as long as nobody is like abusing animals, which nobody is. Like they're not abusing animals. I'm not abusing animals. So I don't see why we would paint one person or the other in a completely negative light. I get it if we want to highlight the drama, but to be negative and disrespectful, I feel like is not like the best stance to start on. But again, I'm not in a position to make demands. I'm not in a position where I'm entitled to certain treatment. Like if somebody wants to treat you a certain way, they're going to treat you that way. It's just about how you respond to that treatment, and you don't have to respond in the same way to them, and maybe me even bringing this up publicly on camera was the wrong move. Maybe I should have just done this privately with Andrew behind the scenes. But I love Gary. I think he's a great guy. There's a couple questions that I would like to ask him that could potentially change my perspective of one aspect of him. But at his core, I feel like he's a caring, loving, good-hearted guy, and Andrew is the same, And so we don't have to agree on all points or like what each other does on all points, but I do feel like as community members that we could respectfully, playfully fight, get along. You know what I mean? So we could fight and whatnot. I don't know. I'm probably asking too much because people are going to have their own right to feel how they feel. You know what I mean? But we are seeing a lot of change in the leopard gecko community. We now have a new podcast called In the Hide or Inside the Hide by two of our friends and followers here, John Hogstein and Denise Ray. And I think they're bringing a cool new spin to the podcasting leopard gecko side of things. And hopefully we'll do a lot of collaborations with them to help just the community tie in together and grow more, Because if there's anything that we've learned from the Samson Pruitt Slither incident is I think that there's a level of depravity that we should all take a stand against. But anything that's not in that level of depravity, I think we should stand together, even if we don't fully agree, And maybe this could even tie into like left-wing, right-wing kind of ideology, right? It's like if you're a liberal, it's like you never agree with the conservative. And if you're a conservative, you never agree with the liberal, when in reality, the truth is somewhere in between. So it's like, why are you forced to choose one or the other? But you're put in a position to choose one or the other. And that's kind of the way the reptile hobby has been conducted for the longest time, is like there's cliques and factions that are like, if you're not 100% with us, you're 100% against us. And I don't think that that's exactly the best way to democratically rule or conduct a hobby. So that's why a lot of leopard gecko breeders are just doing, yeah, exactly. A lot of leopard gecko breeders are just doing their own thing. Geckos, etc., urban gecko, even gecko boa to a certain degree, for being the number one leopard gecko breeder in the world. He's really not on social media or anything like that publicly, and by social media, I mean YouTube, because YouTube is the public face of social media. There is Facebook, of course, but a lot of what happens on Facebook is private conversations, private groups, private chats, all that kind of stuff. So that's why I think that YouTube is a much greater standard of what the face of the hobby is. So like when you think of ball pythons, you think Justin Kabelka, you think Always Evolving Pythons, you think MJ from Trap Talk, you think all of these names that are on YouTube that entertain and inform people. Yes, there is a form of Facebook entertainment and whatnot, but I don't think it's on the same level as YouTube. So much potential for this community. Many amazing breeders. Yeah, for sure. Is that a symbol? Pride, person, earth? Oh, I thought it was a symbol or something. Sorry. Today is 54, incubating your leopard gecko eggs at 82 degrees. That is a bit late. They should have hatched by now. I'm not sure why they didn't hatch, but they could. 82 degrees, 54 days. No, I guess you're about right. Yeah, I would say you would probably be concerned if they go longer than 66 days. If they go longer than 66 days, something might be off, and you might want to consider cutting a little slit in the egg. I never recommend pulling a leopard gecko out the egg or tickling it and encouraging it to get out, because leopard geckos are like one of the few reptile species that take some time to soak up the yolk before they come out. Crested geckos pop right out. Gargoyle geckos pop right out. Tegus pop right out. But ball pythons, leopard geckos, and probably other species of pythons, it's best to just cut a slit in the egg if you're going to cut the egg, and then just let the animal come out on its own, because it still might be soaking up that yolk. So great topics, guys. Keep an eye out for my announcement for our interview with Fauna Radio. I look forward to that. It should be a fun episode, and I look forward to the leopard gecko community tying in more. I can't believe how many people are here this late into the evening. I think that's pretty amazing. I'm going to try to be back tomorrow and do our usual Monday night episode. Have you ever had eggs come out and look deflated? Yes, if eggs come out of your female and they're deflated and soft looking, they're probably infertile, but I would still try to candle them, find the embryo. If you can't, just incubate them and see what happens. Let them incubate. I incubate all eggs unless it's like completely bad from the start. Even then, in the past, I used to incubate those. Now, sometimes I just throw them away. But so thank you guys. I love you guys. I hope you had a great night. If you missed our earliest part of this conversation, it was a pretty interesting conversation about the hobby, about Slither Inc., about policing ourselves, about auditing, about a lot of stuff. Enforcement, jurisdiction, jury. I liked what Wally said. I'm gonna end this on what Wally said, which is due diligence. Is that if we are gonna police ourselves, we need a process of due diligence. It shouldn't just be he said, she said, it shouldn't just be like photo evidence. It should be like photo evidence, in-person testimonies, in-person visits to that person's facility. And then you can make your decision whether you want to suspend them, ban them, whatever. But everybody should also be given a chance to change, and if they change, they could come back and get their audit revisited. And that way the animals win, so that the animals could get a better life. You know what I mean? Through that process. The podcast is going to be, I think it's on the 30th. Don't worry. I will let you guys know for sure. I'll make an announcement of it. That week I'll make an announcement of it. I really want to get back to doing interviews, and I'm hoping that I'm gonna start having some free time to get back to doing interviews. Yeah, Andrew, on the 30th. And I'll share the link and all that kind of stuff as the time approaches. Yeah. So not sure if you heard my whole spiel, Andrew, but I was talking and I didn't see a response to what I was saying. But yeah, I might call you, talk to you about it. I mean, I think we're good, but I look forward to the interview and getting to right some wrongs and correct some stuff that has been said about us that's incorrect. I look forward to you guys bringing the hard questions. I think that's cool. I think that's okay. I think that's all okay. I think what's not okay is like the hate, the lies, the deceit. And it's not, I know it's not you guys doing it. I know it's mainly Heidi and Adam and Seth. But the things that those guys have said over the last couple of years, have been really damaging, really hurtful, or attempting to be hurtful towards us. And a lot of it is just either exaggerated, completely untrue, or just taken way out of context. And so I look forward to getting to clear my name on those things. And that's what I feel like Heidi and Seth and Adam are not going to approve of. As soon as I clear my name on those things, they're going to be like, Gary, how could you let this episode stay up? Because now he's cleared his name, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? So like, I don't know. It depends if you and Gary value just a truthful episode over what Heidi and Adam and Seth think, because I know that they have huge impact and influence being your guys' close friends. You know what I mean? And I get that. I do get that. Interview more new leopard gecko breeders. Yeah, we did have a new leopard gecko breeder series, which was called like New Breeder on the Block. And I will get back to that, but I'm probably going to prioritize first, like, just really interesting topics and hot topics at hand and whatnot. You know what I mean? Like, I was even saying I wanted to interview the Slither dude. You know what I mean? But I feel like there's really nowhere to go if he's just going to defend himself and be like, it's okay. Like, it's not that bad. If you were to come to my facility, it wouldn't look that bad. These are pictures taken across 20 years, blah, blah, blah. If he would just like say that kind of thing, the interview really wouldn't get anywhere. I still think it would be entertaining, like people would watch, but it wouldn't really help the situation at hand. But sometimes it is a little bit about entertainment in this hobby. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, a lot of people are questioning, like, should we even have these photos on the public internet? Because here's something to think about. These photos that the Slither Inc. That people are releasing about Slither Inc. I bet you without a shadow of a doubt that PETA, which is the organization against us, they're going to take these incriminating photos and be like, look how the reptile hobby keeps their animals. Look how they hate on each other and discriminate against each other. We should take the leopard gecko keepers are, not the leopard gecko keepers, the reptile keepers can't even police themselves. We need to police them. You know what I mean? And maybe a national organization that does police the reptile hobby is needed, because there is that for cats and dogs, right? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know. Is there a national organization that you could report cat and dog abuse to? Maybe it's just animal control. However, animal control has been called to Slither Inc. What's his name? Samson Pruitt's facility, and apparently did nothing about his situation multiple times. Because I would imagine people have called animal control on him a million times. And I think he's even mentioned it, or other people have mentioned that animal control has visited his facility and done nothing. So at that point, maybe animal control just doesn't care as much about reptiles because reptiles are not mainstream, you know, and there's only so much dollars that can go into something, right? So the SPA, yeah, that makes sense. I think I've heard of the SPA. But I love you guys. I know you don't want it to stop. I know you just want to talk geckos and reptiles, and it's really interesting, you know. It's a really interesting topic. So I encourage you, if you didn't see this whole episode through, we talked about some really interesting stuff at the beginning, and it could be a good podcast to listen to on your way to sleep or while you're working on some gecko stuff or reptile stuff. But I love you guys. I'm going to try to bring more interviews, more content. There's definitely more videos coming. I got a ton of videos that I've shot and videos that I need to shoot. I still have to release my video of my visit to Iguanaland. I have an Iguanaland video that is going to blow your mind. Amazing. So thank you guys for being here. Love you guys. And until next time, which could be tomorrow night, have a geeky gecko great night, y'all. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.